Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to be doing a bit of a tutorial on how to fly the Scythe in PlanetSide 2. And last time I did a bit of a tips and tricks video for PlanetSide 2, and it is fairly outdated right now. So we're going to run this one right now. I want to teach you guys a little bit on how to fly and be a better flyer in the game. Now, alright. So here's my Scythe. Very pretty with its daisy. Very pretty. Now, let's get started here. Let's work on controls at first. So, first thing about aircraft is you want to know how to control it. That is the number one priority, is control. So, let's just go over that real fast. First, we've got the lift, which is spacebar by default. So it lifts you upwards, and it will lift you in any direction that you turn it. Very, very handy. You always want to be using this a lot. And then there's also the go down, which is control. I'm not sure if it's by default, but that's what I have it set to. And then there is accelerate, which is W. And then decelerate, which is S. Sadly, you cannot go backwards, but there is a way to go backwards in this game. Basically, like this. That's kind of how to do it, but I'll explain that later. And then you've got A, which is turn to the left, and B, turn to the right. Pretty basic. And then you've got your mouse, and that's the tricky part. Now, what you might want to do for practice is you don't want to use the mouse. That's one way to do it. You can actually fly without using the mouse at all. So you start out here in your thing, and so you just hold spacebar, go up, and okay, now what? You go forward. Just go forward just a little bit. Once you get enough speed, you'll go forward without having to worry about falling down. So then you can just use A and W to turn, and if there's an obstacle in your way like that mountain, you just hold space even more and just go above it. That's pretty basic. Now, that you don't want to be flying like this all the time, obviously. You want to be able to aim. I mean, you can't aim very, just as well when you're doing it like that. It takes longer, obviously. And also, another thing you want to be used to, flying in third-person mode. It gives you a better view of your surroundings and what you might possibly crash into, just to, avoid that. Now, let's talk about certs here for a minute. If you want to be what I've got, I'm going purely anti-air. So what I've got here, I'm using decoy flares, only level 1. You might want to go farther than that, though it's very expensive. For defensive, I'm actually using vehicle stealth instead of composite armor. You don't really need to be too worried about being hit by flak or small arms fire unless there's a lot of infantry and you're hovering really low to the ground. But since you're going to air, you don't want to be hovering around the ground like that. So composite armor, not very needed. Vehicle stealth, very good. Decreases the time it takes for enemies to lock onto your vehicle. Very minimal time, but if you set it up, it will increase it by up to 1 second. Not that significant. I probably wouldn't max that out very quickly, but still good cert to get. It also prevents your vehicle from automatically appearing to hostiles based on proximity or radar detection, so that's also very good. Makes you invisible on the map unless you're spotted. I've been using the dogfighting airframe, improved turn roll and agility. Now, I've got this started into a bit, but I've actually been using the Halestorm turbo laser here. Now, that's your primary, well, it's your primary weapon, and it's specifically for anti-air. It's got a very low magazine size, but a very fast reload speed and a very fast fire rate, and it's got some pretty good spread, so you're likely to hit aircraft with it a lot more than than the default. I'm also using the air-to-air rocket pods. I have maxed out ammo capacity first thing. You definitely want to do that. It's not that expensive, and you get 10 missiles at maximum, which is a lot better than the default 4, I believe. No, it's the default 5. Yeah, because I think at first you start out with 5. If you want to go air to ground, I suggest you go getting the dual Photon pods, of which I do not currently have unlocked. There's also the light PPA. I've used it just a bit, but not enough to really know exactly what it's good against, other than maybe infantry. It's just big plasma cannon that shoots fairly fast, but it doesn't do a whole lot of damage to air, so you don't want to be using it against air. Bad idea. Also, if you want to be going air to ground, I would suggest the hover stability airframe, improved hover, air brake, and vertical thrust. I haven't really used it much, but that's probably what you would want to use. For also air to ground, you might want to consider composite armor. I haven't used much with nanite outer repair system. Like, I've never really used it, but I don't know, just something to consider. Utility slot, you want to go for scout radar, definitely. Fire suppression system might also be useful because you're fairly vulnerable when you go air to ground and you just kind of hover there. So, I'm not sure, but I would go with scout radar, definitely, and I would actually start maxing it too, because maybe even just to level 3, because you really need those extra meters. That's very important. Now, let's go back to controlling a little bit. So you have your mouse, and the way mouse works is obviously there's shift up, sideways, up and down, all sorts of stuff. And with the mouse you can do all sorts of crazy maneuvers. You can do spins, barrel rolls, flips, all sorts of crazy stuff. Now, key to doing that is basically knowing control and feeling that you know how to maneuver it with the mouse. So obviously, moving the mouse, unless you're inverted, yeah. I'm not working on inverted. I don't use a joystick to fly. I'm using all mouse and keyboard. And so obviously you want to move the mouse to the right if you want to go to the right. And obviously for the left, mouse to the left. And at the same time I also use to like A and B to maneuver. So like if I'm hovering like this, I can press D and it'll make me aim upwards. Now pressing spacebar at the same time is also good too, because if you're in hover position you will start to fall. So you want to use hover a lot. You want to like constantly just be pressing it over and over and over. So like this, I would press hover, and then I would press up, and then I would also bring the mouse down, trying to maintain this. That's one way how you can go backwards. Is you just hold this, holding space, up. I'm also trying to keep it level here. You don't always have to hold D to go up. That's just the way to go backwards. Now, if you want afterburners also take into play with going backwards just a little bit easier. They can help. Now, one way I fly like this against enemy aircraft is one way that I try to trick them to get behind them is I'll stop and hover, I'll wait a second, and then I'll do this. Now that's one way to go backwards. Is if you use the afterburners, you turn one way or another, go down, hold space bar, and also move at the same time. You normally go backwards if you're in hover position though. It'll only work then. You have to be slowed down, otherwise it won't work at all and you'll just keep going forward. Alright, so now that is out of the way, let's move on to the next segment of the tutorial. Alright, so this next little part is going to be a little bit more about key bindings and just how to become a better flyer in general by changing them around a little bit. Now, the default for when you're in the cockpit view, which you can switch between the views by pressing T, normally the default for looking around like this, that's normally middle mouse button. What I've done is I've bound that to C. So I just hold down C to look around. You won't need this much, but it's good to get a view of your surroundings and also just to spot random aircraft flying around wherever. Now, the other thing I've done is I've also bound middle mouse button, which is normally bound to the look around. I've bound it to pitch up. So if I hold down middle mouse button, it'll do this, which is very, very useful for getting those hard turns. And I really suggest doing that for everyone that likes to fly. So when you get into an air engagement, that'll be very important knowing to middle mouse button on. Sometimes those air battles we get very into a big turning battle where you're just spinning around in circles and not really getting anywhere. If some people don't know how to do this, you'll have an advantage because you can turn, you just turn like this, hold down middle mouse button, and you can just keep on turning and turning and turning and turning, and eventually you'll just get sick. So be careful about that. The best thing to do for aircraft is you always want to have control. You want to be able to maneuver through areas and know that you'll be safe without having to crash into any of the terrain. Now I can fly really low to the ground here and not have to worry about crashing because I've got some pretty good control on this thing, and I know how to fly it. Whoa! Now see, I just hit that there. I did not see that. It's okay though, because I can land and repair. There's no one really around here right now. You can hit terrain, but you don't want to run into it or end up hitting it on top. If you end up flipping over, you will blow up immediately. Sometimes like there, I didn't get hurt too bad, which is lucky of me, honestly. Sometimes the physics in the game will really kind of screw you over, and sometimes, so like the littlest of bump will end up turning you upside down and blow you up immediately. So you want to avoid hitting stuff at all costs. But I'm a very big stunt flyer, so I do crazy stuff like that. And that. And everything. Also, you want to do barrel rolls. Barrel rolls, while are both fun, they can also be fairly useful for getting aiming done, or even chasing enemy aircraft, or shooting things. No, they're not shooting things. I'm going to leave you alone. Nothing I can do about you. Now, flying upside down, that's also a little bit tricky. You don't want to do that all the time. I do it. Alright, this is starting to sway away from tutorial just a little bit here. Now let's try to go into a bit of air-to-air combat here. Actually, before that, let's actually cover air-to-ground. Now, when there's like tanks and Sunders that you want to do, the first thing you want to do is you want to be able to get in a good position behind them. So normally, if you want to see what direction they're facing and then fly straight past them, get behind them, get a ways away, turn around, and then try to hit him from behind. Now see, he's turned around, so I'm going to have to get him on the other side. So I'm going to just back off just a little bit here, fly up over this mountain. That'll block his field of vision of me for just a minute. And see, now I'm behind him. Fire.
Hostile heavy tank spotted.
I can hit him pretty hard there, but not enough to really kill him just yet. Now if you've got rocket pods, you definitely want to hit him from behind. If you hit enemy tanks from behind with rocket pods, they will destroy the tanks very, very quickly. It's just ridiculous. You can 5-hit kill tanks with that. So that is #1 priority. Sunders, you also want to get behind them. You don't want to use your main gun because that would take all of your ammo, and it still might not even kill it. So if you're going against Sunders, you don't really want to be using your main gun. You want to have those Photon pods with you. Now, one tactic I like to do against enemy Sunders is I like to let's demonstrate on this lightning. So if that was a Sunder, this is what I would do. Fly down, right here, jump out. I've got anti-tank mines.
Generator compromised.
Pop that on that guy, kaboom. That's what would happen to the Sunder, unless it had mine guard, which most of them don't. Now that is one really good tactic. While suicidal at times, it is great. You will destroy Sunders like crazy. It's very risky, and most of the time, if it's surrounded by a lot of enemies, you will die. First time I did it, I got like 12 kills though. It was amazing. I wiped out an entire Sunder crew. Now, that bragging out of the way, let's try to get onto air-to-air combat now. There's an enemy Liberator. Now, Liberators are rather easy to be taken down, especially if there's only one person inside of them. Normally what I like to do is I like to open up the rocket and then open fire on my main gun. Hit him again, switch over, let that gun reload, fire another missile, open fire. I'm being shot at a little bit, by a little bit, I mean a lot, so let's back out. What am I being shot at? Oh, he's sort of... Oh, I think he actually popped out. So let's switch back to missile, shoot again. Shot by some small ground on fire over there. That's alright. Taking out enemy Liberators, not that difficult. Uh-oh, he's locked on. It seems I've attracted the attention of the mosquito. Oh, there it is. See, using that middle mouse button to get around on the block. Oh, I'm gonna die here. That's not good. Ow, yep. They had 2 mosquitoes on me, so that was no good, and one of them just spammed rocket pods on me. So that is probably what would happen to you. If that happened to me, that would have happened to me. I don't think I could have prevented dying there other than maybe getting out of there. But I was out of afterburner. So let's actually just get back into the air and see if we can get back into air-to-air combat. Alright, we're back here, and there's that mosquito, and there's a few
Generator repaired.
So let's open fire on them. That's what I like to do. You can just hang around where they're landing and take them out like that. That's great. Now there's 3 of them here. I want to see if I can take them out. So again, I'm just opening fire on these guys with my main cannon. I'm not bothering to get missiles. I can take that guy out. He's a goner. And there's another mosquito. Lay a missile on him.
Eyes on enemy aircraft.
Alright, we're getting a little close here. If you get too close to an enemy, back off. I'm just going to back off a little bit here. I'm going to swerve through this tech lab and re-engage on him with some missiles.
Generator repaired.
That was bad. One hit. I need to take out that guy with the rocket pods.
Generator
So you really want to use stealth on your advantage. This is the guy with the rocket pods. Oh, yep. We crashed into each other. Now that's a last-ditch effort. If you want to just crash into someone and you feel you can't do anything else, you might as well do that. I think that guy actually crashed into me. Overall, that wasn't such a bad effort. I got 2 kills from that, even though I died twice, but I'd say that was worth it. There's not many enemies here anyway, but that is the basic gist of air-to-air combat, and you really want to avoid getting too close. If they've got lock-on rockets, you want to get behind cover as fast as possible. As for avoiding flak, if you know where the flak is coming from, put an obstacle between you and that flak fire as fast as you possibly can. If you're right beneath some, the closer you are to flak, the badder, the worse it gets. Badder isn't even a word, I believe. So yeah, you really want to just put obstacles between you and whatever is firing at you as fast as you can. One thing you can do around, if you're good enough and know how to swerve through obstacles such as like Tech Lab, if you can get enemies to chase you, you start flying around those obstacles and kind of wait for them to crash. If you know you're a better flyer, they'll eventually crash and they'll be off your tail forever. Another way to do it is you get in a good spot and just kind of hover there. And if your enemies cannot find you, they'll start searching around, maybe even crash trying to look for you. Or you'll just they'll eventually be in a bad position and you can sneak out and surprise attack them again. That's kind of what I did there, just a little bit a few times. But it can be very hard, especially if you're being outnumbered like I was. But I still took out 2 out of 3 of them. So I would say that was a plus. That was a really good fight there. So I think that'll be the end of this tutorial. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope it helped in some form or way to help you become a better flyer. And I hope to see more of you Vanu pilots out there. And yeah, we'll see you next time. I just gotta add this in real fast. Whee! It's always fun.